Good evening. This is CTV News for Tuesday, March 26th. I'm Janine Samuels.
And I'm Patricia Vallone. Thank you for joining us. Well, the U.S. Supreme Court hears oral arguments today on two cases that could have far-reaching implications on how electoral maps are drawn nationwide. One of those cases involves the boundary lines drawn for Maryland's 6th congressional district. This morning, Governor Larry Hogan teamed up with another high-profile VIP to terminate gerrymandering.
No, I'm not the Terminator. But I am here to join you in terminating gerrymandering in America.
Ending gerrymandering is an issue close to the heart of many, including the Terminator himself, former Governor Arnold Schwarzennegger.
And it is not one party or the other. It's both. Democrats gerrymander, Republicans gerrymander. It is so bad it is a national disgrace and a national scandal. As a matter of fact, President Reagan called it the anti-democratic and un-American way to lead.
Schwarzennegger joined Maryland Governor Larry Hogan this morning on the steps of the U.S. Supreme Court, calling on justices to issue a standard for determining when partisan gerrymandering is unconstitutional.
This is not a fight between the right and the left. This is a fight between right and wrong. This isn't a fight between Republicans and Democrats. This is a fight for our very democracy. And I think it's one of the primary reasons for all the divisiveness and dysfunction right across the street in that building over there. And it's about time that the Supreme Court make this decision and help us to end gerrymandering and return the power to the people where it belongs.
The Maryland lawsuit, which was first filed by Republicans, centers around the state's 6th congressional district. North Carolina has a similar suit, but instead it's Democrats who are leading the effort. Government watchdog groups, including Common Cause and the League of Women Voters, are also voicing their support for changing how electoral lines are drawn.
The time is now for the court to set a standard that can be applied nationwide. Because our democracy is strongest when everyone participates and every voice is heard. And that is why we will continue to fight, because we cannot stop, we will not stop until we have fair maps.
It was Maryland Attorney General Brian Frosh who appealed a November federal court ruling that said the state's redistricting law violated the First Amendment. He says the plan was created after significant input from voters and is not a case of politicians taking power away from the people.
Hey, hey, ho, ho, gerrymandering's got to go.
Now, Hogan is expected to introduce a proposed new congressional map for the 6th District before the General Assembly adjourns on April 8th. That map was released earlier this month by a nonpartisan panel appointed by the governor to redraw those district lines. Now, it's unlikely, however, that the General Assembly will pass the measure before the Supreme Court decides on the two cases involving Maryland and North Carolina. That decision is expected by June. Well, a coalition of groups held a press conference today to draw attention to police accountability legislation making its way through the General Assembly. Delegate Gabriel Acevedo has sponsored a bill known as Anton's Law. The measure calls for police transparency. The proposed law is named after 18-year-old Anton Black, who died last year while in police custody in Greensboro, Maryland.
What Anton's Law, named after Anton Black, seeks to accomplish is whenever a complainant would request information as to an investigation, the outcome of an investigation, as well as an officer's prior record, that information be released to the complainant and that the process be set up and implemented by the Police Trainings and Standards Commission.
And a hearing was held in a Senate committee this afternoon.
A Maryland state audit reveals that county schools failed to follow procedures in awarding millions of dollars in contracts. The audit cites 32 instances in which contracts totaling $43 million were not submitted to the Board of Education for approval. Interim Schools Chief Dr. Monica Goldson released a statement saying, quote, "We will take an aggressive approach to comprehensive corrective action, including quarterly updates to the Board of Education."
Thousands of Liberians living in the United States legally could face deportation if President Trump does not take action. Now, the Liberian Community Association gathered at CASA headquarters in Langley Park this morning for a news conference. They're demanding that the president continue the practice of extending the status for deferred enforced departure for those holders before the program runs out at the end of the month. Temporary protective status was granted to Liberians in the late 1980s following a number of civil wars across decades.
This administration, during March 2018, activists here came before the White House and Congress asking them to extend DED because Liberia could not sustain Liberians coming back to the country that could not sustain them. At the time, President Trump only agreed for a 12-month extension. We need an extension now. We need an extension now. We need permanent residence for our people, and we need them to be the citizens because they have contributed to our society for 28 years.
About 20,000 Liberians live in the D.C. metro area.
In a surprise turn of events involving actor Jussie Smollett, a Chicago prosecutor drops his case. The former Empire star was indicted on 16 felony charges for allegedly filing a false police report. You may recall that Smollett was charged in February for allegedly orchestrating a hate crime attack on himself. Smollett's lawyer, Patricia Holmes, also says that the state sealed the records in this case. Smollett and Chicago Police Superintendent Eddie Johnson react to the news.
I've been truthful and consistent on every single level since day one. I would not be my mother's son if I was capable of one drop of what I've been accused of. This has been an incredibly difficult time, honestly one of the worst of my entire life. But I'm a man of faith, and I'm a man that has knowledge of my history, and I would not bring my family, our lives, or the movement through a fire like this. I just wouldn't.
Do I think justice was served? No. What do I think justice is? I think this city is still owed an apology.